The Mummy Demastered is a Metroidvania-style action game released in October 2017 on PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the Nintendo Switch. It was developed by WayForward Technologies, who's also known for such games as Contra 4, Aliens Infestation, the Shantae series, and many more. The Mummy Demastered mixes horror and action along with exploration, as well as a more linear experience than a lot of other Metroidvania games. It is based on the Mummy film that was released the same year that absolutely bombed at the box office. Thankfully, the game isn't a shit show like the movie was. The game begins with a nameless soldier who works for an organization that kills monsters called Prodigium, dropping into Iraq and being given commands to find and destroy the Princess Amenet, a reanimated Egyptian princess who is quickly gaining dark power and must be stopped as soon as possible. The soldier is being given these commands by Dr. Jekyll, who acts as a tutor of sorts for all of the equipment that will be used throughout the journey. The player is given areas on their map that they need to check out, and after those objectives are completed, another area will be unlocked on the path ahead. So even though this is a non-linear style game, it really has a set linear path that the soldier will follow as the game unfolds. The soldier starts armed with just a simple machine gun that does very little damage, a jump, a roll move to avoid attacks, the ability to lock in place and shoot without moving, and not much else. Thankfully, as the game progresses, there are lots of upgrades to be found that help in terms of having much better firepower with new weapons, as well as new mobility options, health, and ammo capacity upgrades. The map screen is the same as other staple Metroidvania games, and area maps can be found in each section to show places that haven't been discovered yet. There are plenty of areas throughout the game that can't be accessed without a lot of the aforementioned upgrades, or are frustrating to traverse without them, so remembering inaccessible areas and backtracking often is paramount for success. If I hadn't found all the weapons and upgrades that I did before the end of the game, things would have probably been very frustrating. Save stations that are used to record the soldier's progress are found throughout the areas and are thankfully plentiful. Helicopters can also be found in some of the outside sections and can be used to quick travel around the map to other landing zones. This can be a huge time saver when backtracking. There are also underground areas that can be rappelled into via rope. Collectibles called relics can be found around the map, and they're hidden in everything from trash bags to lanterns. There are 50 of them total, but I don't know if anything special is unlocked once all of them are collected, other than just helping with the completion percentage. Player deaths are handled in an interesting way, but I can see how it would cause problems if you die late in the game. So when a soldier character is killed, a new soldier is sent to take their place. But they have no gear or upgrades except the machine gun. So in order to retrieve the gear you have to kill your old self. The problem is they still have all the weapons and upgrades you had, so they can do massive damage to you. What's even worse is the late areas in the game contain a lot of enemies that the machine gun just does no damage to. I read a lot of angry comments from people who were stuck as a result of one death in the worst place possible. I only died once during the game, and it was because I was just being beyond careless during a boss fight. So I think as long as you find all the upgrades and gear you can, the difficulty isn't terrible. Speaking of boss fights, I think the amount of health that the bosses have could have used a bit of tweaking. They tend to have a little bit too much and the fights go on for what feels like far too long. Graphics are done in a pixel art style and are really pretty, and the animations are really smooth. Enemies and bosses look great and have a lot of detail in their designs. The Mummy Demastered is supposedly built on the Unity engine, and that could be the reason I ran into a few issues with the game. The issues aren't big or anything, but I did find that some of the bigger areas in the game made it have an erratic frame rate. The game was barely using any of my PC's resources, so I'm not sure what was causing this. I did some reading online and I found that I wasn't the only person having stuttering issues. It wasn't anything that ruined my experience by any means, but it's definitely something worth mentioning. I haven't seen this issue in any of the console versions though, and the majority of people with the PC version didn't seem to have many frame rate issues either. The music in this game is phenomenal in my opinion, and I'm actually going to buy a copy of it if I can right after I finish this review. It just has so many good themes and new ones for each area. I honestly didn't expect the music to be anywhere near this good. So, would I recommend the Mummy Demastered? For the most part, yeah. The only real issues I had with it were some of the cheap enemy placements, level design sometimes not being what it could be, and the extreme high amount of damage that a lot of the enemies and bosses can absorb. There's a decent amount of fun to be had with this throwback title, but I would recommend picking it up on a sale if you aren't sure about it, because $20 can be a bit much for just 5 hours or so of gameplay.